Welcome to Pro Football's first 50 years, where we take the past and we bring it back to life. Now, I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, 1920 to 1970. And especially if you're going to go check out on a game like maybe back when, like in the 20s or the 30s. I mean, obviously, you can go online and find a box score, and I'm going to point out something here in a couple minutes that even if you go online, it still may not be right. So you can go out online and you can check out a box score, maybe who won, who lost. I said, I got a point I'm going to prove here in just a minute. Who scored a touchdown, how far a field goal was that somebody kicked, what the attendance was, where the game was played at. You might find starting lineups for each team, but exactly what happened during the game. Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, a little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos or nothing like that here. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So if that's all right with you, let's get it on in today's game. An exhibition battle out in Norman, Oklahoma. Holy cow, Batman. Oh, yeah. The Detroit Lions take on the Chicago Cardinals at Owen Field, August 15th, 1959. This would be the second preseason game for both these teams. Interestingly, both of them, I'm going to show you the schedule here in just a moment, but both these teams wind up playing 7 preseason games. Interestingly, though, the Chicago Cardinals played the Toronto Argonauts of all teams. I mean, it's happened a couple times. I know the Giants, they played a Canadian Football League team as well. So it's happened before. But in the 12-game schedule, these teams were playing 7 preseason games. And, you know, their starters played. I mean, it ain't nothing like it is today. I mean, we're like, you bubble wrap, you might put the starters in maybe for a series because heaven forbid somebody gets injured. You bubble wrap them. You put them in there for a down or a series or so. Then as they're coming off the field, you bubble wrap, place them on the sideline, and so heaven forbid your $50 million a year guy gets hurt. But back then they played. The starters played because they didn't have that huge 90-man roster like they do nowadays. But let me show you. I'm going to show my point here. Let's go over the schedule for each team. As I said here, let's see, share the screen. Let's go with the Detroit Lions. Right? I'm going to get something to prove here. Well, not prove, just to point out. That's all. Now you see here, as mentioned, the Lions have played the Redskins, the Browns. They played the Browns twice. The Eagles, the Giants, the Browns, the Cardinals, and the Rams. They played 7 preseason games. I mean, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And I'll show you here the Cardinals. They played the Colts, the Steelers, the 49ers, the Rams, the Steelers, the Lions, and the Toronto Argonauts. But they played the Steelers twice. But once again, as you can see here, they played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 preseason games, even although one of them was the Toronto Argonauts, where they wound up whooping up on in Toronto. They played out in Toronto. And, that's kind of saying something because the Cardinals are not a very good team. And they went in there and played the Argonauts and beat them 55-26. Now, I haven't done a video on this game yet, so I'm not sure if like the first half they played pro football, NFL rules, and the second half was Canadian League. Well, I'm not sure, but they played in Toronto, so good exhibition stadium. So good chance it was on a Canadian Football League field, but I'm going to be interested to see when I do a video on that. But the thing I wanted to point out, which I talked about in the very, very beginning, is that it says that you can go online and find a box score, who won, who lost, and all that. Well, that's not necessarily always accurate. Now, granted, this is no huge problem It's a little mistake. And they Pro Football, the archives, Pro Football Archives, where I go to all the time. Great, I love this site. This site, and I'm going to show you another site in just a second here. But I love this site here. But you see right here, this. So we got here, right? This is the Detroit Lions, 1959. Come down to the second week of the season. It's this game right here, the Chicago Cardinals. So the result, the score on this side, on the left-hand side, is what the Lions have. The score on this side is what the Cardinals had. Well, that's wrong. See, according to Pro Football Archives, and I just once again, it's exhibition. It doesn't matter really, but my point is that sometimes you can find out things online, and it's still not right. This is wrong. The Cardinals won this game 21-19. Once again, it's no huge big deal. It's an exhibition game. Doesn't matter. But right, the Cardinals won 21-19, not the Lions. And as if you go here, right, to the Cardinals, right, it's either way. This is here that the Lions had 21, the Cardinals had 19. So, but it's reversed. I got plenty of articles we're going to read that say 21-19, Chicago Cardinals. So even if you went online, because the other thing I want to point out is that it's once again, this is just exhibition. Not a lot of people care much about a 1959 exhibition game, and I get it. I totally understand. Let's see here. But if we go see the one thing is that there's not many sites that actually have the preseason results. Now, this is Pro Football Reference. I go here a lot too. Now, I think you can possibly get some type of a subscription where you upgrade your, right? Instead of just logging in on the free stuff, which is what I do. I don't have an account, log in, where I can have an updated version of this or anything like that. I'll pay for none of that stuff. So this is the free version. But you'll notice here, now I don't know if you pay for Pro Football Reference, and upgrade your account or whatever it is. Do they show the preseason? I don't know. I have no idea. But if you go to Pro Football Reference, they don't have. It said in the free version anyway. They don't have the exhibition, the results. So you have no idea. No idea what happened in the preseason. So, if you were actually going to go, there might only be so many places you can go to find out what the results are of an exhibition game. Now, once again, this is almost 70 years ago, 65 years ago. It's not that big of a deal. But they said if you go to Pro Football Reference, you don't even know, what the exhibition games were. I said, but I go, the Pro Football Archives. They have a lot of good stuff. And as I said, one of the things I like about it is that they have, they do show the exhibition games. And it's great because it tells you where they played at, the attendance, the venues played at. So it's great. I love it. I said, but if you go here and you look at it, it's like, this is the Cardinals. Whoops. Yeah, right. That's the Cardinals. Yeah. So I'm saying if you log into the Lions, 1959 Lions, you go, they won week 2. They beat the Cardinals out in Norman, Oklahoma. They beat them 21-19. No, that's wrong. But you'll see, both these teams are very, very disappointing this season. It's kind of like how the mighty have fallen. The Cardinals Cardinals were good in the late 40s. They haven't been good pretty much throughout the 50s. This would be their last season in Chicago. They were looking to get out of Chicago. In 1960, they would wind up and land in St. Louis, where they would become the St. Louis Cardinals. But you can see, with the Lions anyway, the Lions, my goodness, 52, 53, 54, and 57, they were getting to the championship games. They won 3 out of 4 championship games. So in the 50s, they won 3 championships. But Not this year. This year, I mean, I said both these teams are very, very disappointing. I mean, the Lions were 3-8-1. Cardinals only won, I believe, two games. So, but as I said, you can see. I mean, my goodness. I mean, they started off 1, 2, 3. They had 4 losses. Then they had a win. Then they lost, a tie, a win, a couple losses, a win. Yeah, I mean, they were shambles of themselves. And I said only 2 years prior they'd won the championship. And I said, but here, I mean, look at the Cardinals, though. It's just, whew. Right, 2-10, yeah. Now, their coach, Pop Ivy, was a successful coach in the Canadian Football League. Might be one of the reasons, if maybe the reason, that these Cardinals played the Toronto Argonauts, possibly. But one, as you see here, I mean, nice sized crowd actually showed up in Norman, Oklahoma. It's Oklahoma Memorial Stadium or Owen Field. It's got Wikipedia. It's the same stadium. But a nice sized crowd showed up. Now you can't say they don't love their football out in Oklahoma. That is for sure. But I mean, I said, it's like, what we got? They won the first game of the year. They beat the Redskins, the Cardinals I'm referring to. Then they just 1, 2, 3. They lost 4, and then they beat the Steelers, and then they lost the rest of the games. They were just not a very good team. They traded away their best player, Ollie Matson. They got 9 players, well, actually 8 players in a draft pick from the Rams for Ollie Matson. They traded him away, and it didn't help either team, really. The Rams were not very good at all in 1959, and neither were the Cardinals. So that trade didn't really help either team out. But as I said, the game is played in Norman, Oklahoma. As they say, go to Wikipedia. Where are we at here? Here we go. Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, or Owen Field, or the Palace on the Prairie, or if you're a little kid from me growing up in the 70s, the Little House on the Prairie. Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. All right, say that 10 times real fast. Is the football stadium on the campus of the University of Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma. Serves as the home of the Oklahoma Sooners. Beautiful stadium there. Look at that, huh? Owen Field with the Palace on the Prairie. Stadium with a newly finished south entrance and enclosed south side in 2017. And there's the location in Oklahoma. Let's see. Its size, it holds 80,126, making it the 41st largest stadium in the world. 15th largest college stadium in the United States, and the 9th largest in the southeastern. Well, that's changed. I mean, because teams nowadays change conferences like they change their underwear. It's where the most money is. There's no tradition anymore, nothing like that. You got teams from the West playing in the East, and it's just It's all about the Benjamins nowadays. But the stadium is a bowl-shaped facility with its long axis oriented north and south, with both the north and south ends enclosed. The south end has only been enclosed since the 2015-2016 offseason. I got some pictures from the earlier times to show you. When it was renovated as a part of a $160 million project. Wow. And here we go. Here's that, right? An early drawing, of the stadium. The idea was scrapped for a simpler, cheaper stadium. Well, understandable. The first game was played in the current stadium site in 1923, which OU considers to be the stadium's opening date, with the Sooners prevailing over Washington University 62-7. Till 1925, seating consisted of an approximate 500-seat bleacher area on the east side. 500 seats. Wow. The first permanent seating was built in 1925, with 16,000 seats were built on the west side of the site, corresponding to the lower level of the current facility's west grandstands. The new stadium was named Oklahoma Memorial Stadium in honor of university students and personnel who died during World War I. Very appropriate. Never naming it after soldiers, fallen soldiers, or what. Never argue with that. What I can't stand is when nowadays is some of them obviously the sponsorships and all of that stuff. It's like named the Mercedes-Benz State. I hate that. But anyway, let's see. The facility was constructed at an approximate cost of $293,000. And at the time, the coach Benny Owen helped raise the money. The playing surface was named Owen Field after him during the 1920s. The stadium as a whole has long been called Owen Field, but the field and the stadium are actually two separate entities with different names. Interesting. There are two main reasons why the stadium was not originally a fully enclosed bowl, like, for example, Michigan Stadium or the Rose Bowl. First, access to the 3 outdoor football practice fields, which are behind the south end zone seats, would have been restricted by completely enclosing the south end of the stadium. Secondly, any enclosure would have forced the baseball field, which shared its outfield with the practice fields until 1982, to shorten its left field line considerably. So then they added some more permanent seats in 1929. 1949, the north end of the stadium was enclosed. They created a 55,000-seat horseshoe, and the addition of the south end bleachers in 57 brought the capacity to 61,836. Unfortunately, AstroTurf replaced the natural grass, unfortunately, in 1970. The west side upper deck was added in 75. Then they were up over 71,000. Let's see. Improved south end zone seating, including new coaches, offices, and training facilities, were added in 1980, and the old turf was replaced with super turf in 81. So, with a few exceptions, these changes took place during or shortly after the Sooners' national championship seasons of 50, 55, 56, 74, and 75. All high times for Sooner sports. Then there was and some issues here, obviously, because back in the day, when I was growing up in the 70s, and you turn on, some football on Saturday, there was only just a couple football games on. I remember Notre Dame they would have like an hour-long show. They would condense the Notre Dame football game and put it on Sunday. And because Notre Dame was my team, so I would came on like either 11 o'clock. Well, it had to be before professional football came on. So it was either came on, I think maybe at 11, from 11 to 12. They had like an hour-long condensed version of the Notre Dame game, which I watched because I love Notre Dame. And nowadays you can see every Notre Dame game. You couldn't back in the 70s. But back in the 70s, I said there was only a couple college games on every day. I mean, now you oh my goodness gracious. I mean, there's games all over the place. I mean, you can literally watch probably dozens of games every Saturday on TV. It wasn't like that. And there were some improvements. There we go. View from the top row of the inside of the 2005. Beautiful, beautiful stadium. All right, we got this here. The east side of the stadium during halftime of the September 2nd, 2006 game between Oklahoma and the University of Alabama Birmingham Blazers. Barry Switzer Stadium, or the Switzer Center. Seating capacity, like we were talking about in the beginning, was all like 16,000 and all, but you can see, it's over 80,000. All right, so that's the. So it's called either Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium or Owen Field or the Palace on the Prairie. Take your pick. They're all right. All right, so it's got some pictures here. And actually, one of the pictures I got is actually of the program for this game we're talking about right now. Here we are here. I can find it. Here we are. Here's the program. August 15th, 1959. Owen Field, Norman, Oklahoma. Detroit Lions, Chicago Cardinals. Oklahoma City All Sports Association presents professional football. He's a happy camper running with the football. Look at him. He's all smiles. Apparently he hasn't been tackled lately. Whoops. Okay, so very cool. Very, very cool. Let's see. Here's an older picture of it. This one thing, it says 38 years ago. This is not 38 years ago. It was back in, I don't think this is from 1987, but October 24th, 1987 was the first official night game at Owen Field, 1987. Let's see here. Owen Field, the gateway to Oklahoma. I mean, just, beautiful stadium. And you certainly, whatever, they said, you certainly cannot say they don't love their football out there. There we go. Here's Owen. Here's an old, I mean, my goodness, old. I mean, look at this. Here's Owen Field. Right, so you got the bleachers over here. This could be when they had about, it doesn't say. But, I mean, you just see there's some people lining the outside of the field here. But, yeah, I mean, wow. Let's see, is this, I mean, look at this. A boomer game? I'm not sure what the heck that means. But, what we at here? Anything else? All right, Owen Field, 1940. Wow. Jeez. 1940. Jeez. Wow. Let's see. And this is I hate when you click on something and it winds up being a very small picture. There we go. I mean, that's a beautiful, beautiful stadium. All right. There's just something mystical about Oklahoma and Owen Field. Oh, yeah. It's just absolutely beautiful. And they certainly do, without question, love their football there. Owen Field in 1940. Maybe this is 1940 again, too. Let's see. All right. Well, Field 1940. Well, it's supposed to be when I don't know if the Giants ever played there at Owen Field or not. I'm not sure. But it will be the New York Giants right there. So that's good old Owen Field. That one of the things is that a lot of if you'll notice that a lot of the games are played at neutral sites. This obviously being one of them. A lot of these. I mean, they were trying to find, some of it had to do with the formation because obviously the next season the AFL was forming, and the NFL wanted to find places that would be suitable for expansion, and they wanted to go in and not invade, play games in other cities to see which ones drew out, a nice amount of fans, and maybe give the NFL an idea. Oh, maybe we should put a team in there, because what they wanted to do is they wanted to get their foot in the door at other cities as well, because they didn't want the AFL landing in a city that was like a gold mine, and if the NFL wasn't in there, so the NFL was hard pressed on doing whatever damage they could to the newly formed AFL league. They did not want them to survive. So one of the games was played in Norman, Oklahoma. All right, so we got what do we got here? Got a little bit of pregame. So we got the Daily Oklahoman, the August 15th, 1959 edition of the Daily Oklahoman. There we go. All right. What do we got? Lions and Cards to collide tonight. And the Colts, they played their game against the college all-stars, killed them. Pro footballs from Chicago Cardinals were in Norman Friday for an afternoon workout as a final tune-up for Saturday night's game against the Detroit Lions. At left, John David Crow and Joe Conrad talked things over. Card coach Pop Ivy huddles with a couple of players well known to State fans. Left is Dale Meinert, formerly of Oklahoma State, and to the right is Max Boydston, former Oklahoma University standout. Both are ends. So we got the Lions and the Cardinals to collide tonight. A pair of National Football League rivals who have not played each other in 3 years collide at 8 p.m. Saturday at Owen Stadium as the Oklahoma Spice Chicago Cardinals challenge the Detroit Lions. Last time the teams met was 1956 in a preseason match at Mobile, Alabama, with the Cardinals skimming through by a 20-17 margin. The previous year, Chicago edged Detroit 17-16 in an exhibition contest at St. Louis. And little did Chicago Cardinals know that they would, 1960, they would land in St. Louis and become the St. Louis Cardinals. In regular NFL action, the Cards and Lions have not met since 1949. Wow, that's crazy. But they are back on each other's schedules this season for a December 6th date at Detroit. The Lions, world champions in 1957, are cast as dark horse title contenders in the Western Division this year, while the Cardinals figured to continue the improvement they made last season when Oklahoman Frank Pop Ivy took over the helm. Ivy, former OU All-American and later an assistant coach on Bud Wilkinson's Sooner staff, numbers 3 one-time state collegians on this squad, and 2 of them are listed as starters against Detroit. Max Boydston of OU and Muskogee will open at right end with the Cards' offensive platoon, and Dale Meinert of Oklahoma State and Lone Wolf start at left end on defense. Ponca City's Tom Catlin, a 2-time All-American center for the Sooners, figures high in Chicago's linebacking picture after being swapped to the Cards by the Cleveland Browns 2 weeks ago. The Cardinals worked out here Friday afternoon after flying in from their Lake Forest, Illinois training camp. Ivy is still trying to reach a decision on the important quarterback question as 4 triggermen contend strongly for the post. The leading candidates are King Hill of Rice, MC Reynolds of Louisiana State, Hunter Ennis of Texas Christian, and Houston Patton of Mississippi. All 4 are likely to get a chance to direct Ivy's tricky double-wing T offense Saturday night. Coach George Wilson of the Lions has 3 top-draw quarterbacks in Tobin Rote of Rice, 10-year veteran of the NFL, Earl Morrall of Michigan State, and Jerry Reichow of Iowa. The Lions held their final drill all at the club's training camp near Detroit Friday morning and will not appear at the game site until time to warm up Saturday night. The squad arrived at Oklahoma City early Friday night and made headquarters at the Skirvin Hotel. The Cards are staying at the Lockett Hotel here. Both the Cards and the Lions turned in satisfactory performances in their opening games last week. The Chicagoans whittled Toronto of the Canadian circuit 55-26, and Detroit managed a 20-20 tie with the favored Los Angeles Rams when Jerry Perry booted a 32-yard field goal with only 27 seconds remaining. Injuries will keep at least 3 front Detroit line players out of action as veteran end Jim Doran of Iowa State, tackle John Gordy, and halfback Gene Gedman are sidelined with various ailments. 2 of the most illustrious collegiate runners in recent years are matched as rival left halfbacks as Hopalong Cassidy of Iowa State starts at that position for the Lions, and John Crow of Texas A&M for the Cardinals. A large number of tickets are still available at $4 each, and the sponsoring Oklahoma City All Sports Association does not expect the crowd to go over 45,000. Tickets will be on sale Saturday until 5 p.m. at the Wynn Ticket Booth, 135 West Main Street. Fans arriving early at Norman may purchase tickets at the stadium, where ticket windows will open at 2 p.m. Norman Police and the State Highway Patrol are urging fans to arrive no later than 7 p.m. in order to avoid a duplication of last year's traffic snarl, which caused many spectators to miss some of the early action. So get there early. If you're going, get there early. Game music will be provided by the Fort Sill Army Band and halftime entertainment by the Norse Stars, a precision drill team of 50 Northeastern A&M co-eds, plus the national baton twirling champion, Miss Joyce Rice of Greenfield, Iowa. Some 300 explorers, scouts, and leaders from the Last Frontier Council and other units over the state will serve as ushers. The scouts who have been ushering at OU's home games for the last 12 years are coming from Alva, Ponca City, Elk City, Clinton Sherman Air Base, Shawnee, Weoka, Holdenville, Kanawha, and Oklahoma City. Tom Catlin, linebacker for the Chicago Cardinals, became the father of a future football player Friday on the eve of an exhibition game between the Cardinals and the Lions. Catlin's wife, Betty Jean, 24, gave birth to a son at Norman Municipal Hospital. Mrs. Catlin's mother lives in Norman. Catlins have one other child, as a daughter. The former Sooner center from Ponca City was expected to see considerable action on the Cards' defensive unit Saturday night, but he has said the new arrival left him rather shaken. "I'm going to play football, but I don't know how good," he said. What's this over here? And here we go. So how the pros will start. So there you go, right? You got your, is that maybe possibly the starting line, the offense and starting defense for both teams. You got the referees down here. Game kicks off at 8 o'clock at Owen Field. Right. All right, so now we got the Detroit Free Press, the August 15th, 1959 edition of the Detroit Free Press. Let's see what they got to say here. Lions will start Earl Morrall against the Cardinals tonight. Earl Morrall, to me, the best backup quarterback ever. Played on a lot of teams. Played a lot of football. All right, Oklahoma City. Earl Morrall, regarded by some as Tobin Rhodes' heir, makes a preliminary pitch for the Lions' quarterbacking legacy here Saturday. The fair-haired boy from Michigan State will start his first game for the Lions as they meet the Chicago Cardinals before some 50,000, well, only 40,000 show up, but on the University of Oklahoma's field in nearby Norman. Game time is 9 p.m. The game will be aired in Detroit over radio station WJR. So, guys, I don't know if it's 9 o'clock and it's going to start in Oklahoma at 8 o'clock and it's 9 o'clock in Detroit. I'm not exactly sure. But Morrill will play the first half of the game as Coach George Wilson extends his plan of alternating the Lions' three quarterbacks, Morrill, Rote, and Jerry Reichow. A week ago, Morrill inspired the Lions in a last quarter offensive which caught and tied the Los Angeles Rams 2020. His performance was the best the Lions received, resulting in 6 completions for 101 yards and 1 touchdown on 12 passes. Morrill came to the Lions after the second game of the 1958 season when the Lions traded Bobby Lane to the Pittsburgh Steelers. An injury to Rote pressed him into immediate service. Morrill was used frequently but never assumed a starting role. His work last season produced 25 completions on 78 passes. That's not even 33%. And 5 touchdowns. Now, with Rote's age becoming a factor, he is 31. The Lions are looking for capable help at quarterback. Morrill may be the answer, and more. There have been suggestions that Morrill, strong arm, brainy, and 25 will overtake Rote. He has a chance to make long strides now. Rote will play the third quarter and Reichow the last against the Cardinals. Wilson will follow the pattern he employed in the Ram game using a mixed lineup of rookies and veterans in the first half, then likely drifting toward an all-veteran lineup to finish. It's possible, too, that Nick Petrosani, the Lions' number 1 draft choice, will make his debut with the team. Petrosani and 5 other Lion rookies are with the college all-stars who played the Baltimore Colts in Chicago Friday night. Petrosani is the only one on the group who will dress for the Lions Saturday. His appearance will be only a token gesture. The Lions, handicapped again by injuries, left 4 players at their Cranbrook camp, ends Jim Doran and Perry Richards, and backs Gene Gedman and George Gillar, or Gillar. I don't know. This will be only the 3rd time that the Lions have played the Cardinals in a preseason game, and the Lions are looking for their first victory. The Cardinals are distinguished this year for having made the boldest trade engineered in the National Football League. They gave up Ollie Matson to the Rams in exchange for 9 players, 4 of them regulars. Possibly the most important of the lot was lineman Roger Panfill. Cardinals figured they made a shrewd deal and profited handsomely, even though they yielded Matson, one of the game's greats. With new strength in its line, the Cardinals are expected to be a factor in the Eastern Division race for the first time in many years. Well, not necessarily. Pretty far from it. They, as I showed you, they were not having they're not going to have a good year. All right, now we got the Lawton Morning Press, the August 15th, 1959 edition of the Lawton Morning Press. Let's see what they got to say on the game here. All right, 45,000 fans due at OU tonight. Lions and the Cards clash. Whoa! Let's refresh the page. There we go. All right. Norman, Oklahoma, the National Football League exhibition football game at Owen Field Saturday night between the Lions and the Cardinals will serve as an unofficial homecoming party for 3 former state collegiate stars and Cardinal coach Frank Pop Ivy. Because of this array of Sooner talent, state talent, the Cardinals are sure to be the sentimental favorites for an expected crowd of 45,000. The kickoff is scheduled for 8 p.m. The game is sponsored by the Oklahoma City All Sports Associations and will not be broadcast or televised. Wow. So what they're kind of doing is like, if you want to have anything to do with the game, you got to go see it. Ivy, a stalwart end at the University of Oklahoma in the late 30s and a member of the 1939 team that went to the Orange Bowl, took over the Cardinal coaching reins last season. 2 former University of Oklahoma stars and 1 from Oklahoma State are expected to play a major role in Chicago's program this year. Max Boydston of Muskogee will be starting at right end on the Cardinal offensive unit, while Ponca City's Tom Catlin and Dale Minart will see defensive duty. Boydston and Catlin are former Sooners, while Minart started Oklahoma State. He is from Lone Wolf and is slated to start at defensive left end. Detroit, always strong defensively, is coached by George Wilson and is considered stronger than the Cardinals because of more experience. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the 2 teams, I mean, you look at the Cardinals, it's like, wow. It's like, how do they win any games? They don't. A star-studded lineup is not what the Cardinals have. I can tell you that much. The Lions' starting offensive backfield is headed by 10-year veteran Tobin Road, with Earl Morrall, a 4-year man from Michigan State, as a capable understudy. Starting halfbacks probably will be Howard Hopalong Cassidy and Dan Lewis, with John Henry Johnson in the fullback slot. Ivy expected to use MC Reynolds and King Hill most of the time at quarterback, but he feels that Hunter Ennis and Huston Patton are just about as good as they probably will be pressed into service. The Cardinals' starting halfbacks are likely to be Joe Childress of Auburn and John Crow of Texas A&M, with Mal Hammock of Florida doing the fullbacking. Each team has played 1 practice game, with the Lions gaining a 20-20 tie with the title contending Los Angeles Rams on a 32-yard field goal by Jerry Perry in the final 27 seconds. The Cardinals rolled over Toronto Argonauts 55-26, displaying a ground game which churned up 600 yards rushing. Holy cow. Wow. The Cards' 8 touchdowns all came on running plays. It will be the first meeting between the teams in 3 years. The Cards edged the Lions 20-17 at Mobile, Alabama in 1956 and registered a 17-16 decision at St. Louis in 1955. The teams haven't met in a regular season game since 1949, but they will play this year on December 6th. Wow. Odd. All right, so that's that. So let's what happened during the game? All right, well, let's go here. What do we got? Let's go to the August 16th, 1959 edition of the Norman Transcript. The Norman Transcript. All right. What do they got to say in the game here? All right, Norman Transcript. Here we are. All right. I'll tell you what, man, you look. Holy cow. I mean, if you look over here, if you glance over here, I mean, first downs. I mean, holy cow. The Lions had 4 first downs all game. Cardinals had 7. I mean, the Lions had, it's amazing anybody scored any points. The Lions had 131 yards of offense. They were 10 out of 20. And once again, so many times I'm seeing the penalty yards being called. It's so few. It's amazing. Cardinals had they had some penalties, but they might have been refused or whatever it was, but they had no penalty yards assessed against them the whole game. But you know, here, once again, Cardinals had 7 first downs, 11 first downs in this game. Holy cow. Rushing yards. So the Cardinals had like almost 300 total yards. But over 70 of it came on one play, which we're going to read about. I mean, what do we got here? There were 18 out of 45 passing combined, 2 of them. I mean, the Cardinals completed like less than 33% of their passes. What we got here? We got some Crows Dash hoist cards over Lions 21-19. Say if you go to Pro Football Archives, it says that the Lions won 21-19. Nope, Cardinals won. Down you go. Detroit tacklers Gene Cronin and Terry Barr stopped Chicago's Bobby Gordon after he received the pass for 10 yards. Right here. And then what do we got here? Detroit fullback Ken Webb bowls over for the Lions' only touchdown despite the efforts of a host of Cardinal tacklers. Crows Dash hoists Cardinals over the Lions. 71-yard sprint sews up game in the last quarter. John David Crow scampered 71 yards for a touchdown in the fourth quarter here Saturday night to give the Chicago Cardinals a 21-19 victory over the Detroit Lions. Quarterback King Hill started to play when he skirted right end. Seeing he could go no further, he pitched a lateral to Crow on his own 29, and with a dandy block from Woodley Lewis, Crow rambled the rest of the way behind a covey of blockers. He shook off the last Lion on the 20 and scooted home. Bobby Joe Conrad converted. It was a final quarter thriller. The touchdown came with 3:32 remaining in the contest, and if that wasn't enough to keep the 40,000 fans on the edge of their seats, a field goal attempt by Golden Toad Jim Martin should have satisfied them completely. So what do we got here? Let's see. So the Lions were up 3-0. Then Hammock scored a 1-yard plunge, so put the Cardinals up 7-3. Then the Lions kicked the field goal, make it 7-6. Then the Lions scored their touchdown, kicked the extra point, made it 13-7 at the halftime. Nothing in the third quarter. Then the Lions kicked another field goal. The Lions actually were up 16-7 in this game. Then Childers ran a 5-yard run to make it 16-14. Then Martin kicked a field goal to make it 19-14, and then Crow dashed 71 yards. So Martin, who kept Detroit in the game with 4 perfect boots, missed a 35-yarder with 29 seconds remaining. Wow. It was the second straight year the pros gave Oklahoma fans a genuine cliffhanger. Last year, the Philadelphia Eagles edged the Lions in the final minute 31-24. Crow's run climaxed an uphill battle for coach Frank Pop Ivy's Cardinals. Down 13-7 at the half, Cardinals got untracked early in the fourth quarter. Neither team scored in the third, but Martin connected on a field goal from 32 yards out on the first play of the final period after the Lions took advantage of one of the many Chicago errors. Then the Cardinals put together their longest drive of the night, 80 yards in 8 plays. Crow started it with a 30-yard blast over right tackle. 2 plays later, Hill hit Sonny Randall for 18 yards down to the Detroit 28. Another pass failed, and then came the strangest play of them all. Hill gave to Crow. Crow gave it right back, and Hill hit halfback Joe Childers for 20 yards down to the Detroit 8. Fullback Mal Hammock smashed over right guard for 3, and Childers swept left end for the touchdown, carrying 3 tacklers into the end zone with him. An intercepted pass set Detroit up on the Chicago 16 2 series later, but the Chicago line, considerably improved over last year's edition, repelled the Lions, and Martin kicked from 21 yards out to give Detroit a 19-14 lead. On the first play of the game, Crow reeled off 21 yards over right tackle, but on the second, bobbled the ball away to the Lions. Ben Palucci on the Chicago 34. In 3 plays, the Lions went nowhere, and Martin booted home his first field goal from 41 yards out. He was aided by a 17-mile-per-hour wind. Wow. After an exchange of punts, Chicago reeled off its answering blast, a 12-play, 66-yard sortie Big gainers were 17 and 15-yard tosses from Hill to Woodley Lewis, Lewis, and former Oklahoma All-American Max Boydston. Those plays set the Cardinals up on the line 37, and Childress spun around left end for another first down on the 21. After a 2-yard loss, Crow cut over right guard on a neatly executed reverse down to the 4. Hill's pass to Boydston in the end zone was incomplete, but defensive pass interference placed the ball on the 1, and fullback Mal Hammock muscled over right guard with 2:22 left in the quarter. Conrad would convert. Chicago fumbles. A Chicago fumble early in the second quarter gave Detroit another chance on the Cardinals' 29. Former Oklahoma center Tom Catlin saved a touchdown by tackling Lewis on the 8 after a pass completion. 2 plays gained 2 yards, and Earl Morrall's pass fell incomplete. Martin kicked a field goal from the 12. 12-yard field goal. Let's see. Okay, there was that, but we got this over here. Cards enjoy feeding the Lions' fourth quarter diet of crow. Although this was billed as a homecoming of sorts for Pop Ivy and Oklahoma members of the Chicago Cardinals, it was, of all things, a Texan who stole the focus of attention in the Cards locker room after their come-from-behind victory over the Detroit Lions here Saturday night. John David Crow, former Texas A&M All-American, was the man of the hour. And to make matters stranger, the second most popular topic was the fact that a Notre Dame graduate, Jim Martin, had like Casey, struck out. It was Crow's weaving run late in the game which staked the Cards to a 21-19 lead just after the Chicago bench had been thrown into gloom by a field goal, which seemed to put the Lions home free. And moments later, it was Martin's miss of another field goal try which brought cheer back to the Ivy men. It would hardly do to come back here and lose, smiled Ivy afterwards as an aide to coach Bud Wilkinson of Oklahoma. He hardly developed a losing habit. That Crow, Ivy further enthused, will win him for you like that. He's a fine one. Other Oklahomans, including Max Boydston, veered from talk of their own homecoming to discussion of another much-debated play, one which at the moment it happened hardly seemed too significant. That one also happened in the last few hectic minutes. Just after the Cardinals bolted into the lead and the Lions had returned the ball, the Card line put a terrific rush on Lions signal caller Jerry Reichow. Reichow ran and finally threw the ball away. The official called intentional grounding and stepped off a 15-yard penalty, but from the scrimmage line near midfield. From the Card bench, it appeared that a rather flagrant clipping penalty went unnoticed far back downfield. If this one had been caught and called, the Lions wouldn't have been so near the midfield stripe and might not have been able to unleash the Aerials attack which set up Martin's dying gasp miss. Oklahoma State's Dale Minart surprisingly was among the most mobbed Cards after the game. Grabbed by an apparent old friend, Minart cuffed the man happily and yelled, "I was wondering if I'd see anybody I knew." The Lions dressing room was quiet, as might be expected, while the players exchanged football gear for street clothes. A comment by quarterback Tobin wrote that they played harder just a little longer seemed to sum up the players' attitude. Coach George Wilson said the loss resulted from missing some scoring chances. When you get inside the opponent's 30, you have to score to win, he stated. But scoring only 3-point field goals isn't enough. We needed some touchdowns tonight. Wilson said an injury to rookie fullback Nick Petrosani in Friday night's All-Star game kept the former Notre Dame star out of the game. So Nick Petrosani, he played in the Baltimore Colts game. And he was, on Friday night, maybe possibly going to play a game again on Saturday. I mean, that stuff ain't happening nowadays. All right, let's go to the Lawton Constitution and Morning Press. Wow. The August 16th, 1959 edition of the Lawton Constitution and Morning Press. All right, let's see here. All right. Yeah. Cards nip Lions 21-19 on Crow's touchdown. What we got here? Crow romps on upfield. John David Crow, number 44, Chicago Cardinal halfback, comes to the end of the line after a 24-yard run against the Detroit Lions in a pro exhibition at Norman Saturday night. Moving in for the tackle is Jim Steffen. It's just odd because, the Cardinals got all white helmets and there's no emblems at all on the Lions helmet either. All right. 40,000 to see long run climax defensive game. Electrifying 73-yard scoring play in the waning minutes carried the Chicago Cardinals to a 21-19 victory over the Detroit Lions in the National Football League exhibition game Saturday night. A crowd of 40,000 had just about settled for a Detroit triumph with 3.5 minutes left in the game when the Cardinals maneuvered John Crow into the open on a 71-yard touchdown jaunt. Quarterback King L set up the play with a sneaker through the line and then suddenly lateraled to Crow, who set sail down the right sideline. Picked up plenty of the protection at the Detroit 40 and crisscrossed into the end zone. Crow's long run was the standout of a defensive battle which saw the Cardinals hold the Lions to a net 26 yards rushing. Wow. While they managed to produce 181 yards on the ground. The Lions had the best of the passing with 10 completions out of 20 for 105 yards. Chicago hit on only 8 of 25 for 94 yards. Kicking specialist Jim Martin made good on field goals from the 41, 12, 32, and 21-yard lines to account for the 12 points. After Martin's first field goal in the opening quarter, the Cards surged back to go ahead 7-3 as fullback Mal Hammock plunged over from the 1-yard line late in the quarter. Lions took the lead in the second quarter on a field goal by Martin and Ken Webb's 1-yard plunge for TD with 2 minutes left in the half. The Lions widened their lead on Martin's third field goal for a 16-7 advantage. Cardinals then picked up their feet and moved to a touchdown with 12 minutes left in the game as Joe Childress went wide to his left from 5 yards out. Martin followed up with his final field goal with 4:32 left as the Lions took a 19-14 lead. The victory for the Cards was a crowd pleaser because it was sort of an unofficial homecoming for Coach Frank Pop Ivy, a former University of Oklahoma player and assistant coach. Ivy is in his second year with the Cardinals, and the aggressive type of play displayed against the Lions indicated that he may be in a position to lead them out of the Western Division doldrums. Two former Sooners, Max Boydston and Tom Catlin, saw plenty of action and the Cards, and it was Boydston's catch of a 15-yard pass from Hill, which set up the team's first touchdown. It gave them a first down on the Detroit 37. Catlin, as a linebacker, was his old self, spoiling many Detroit Lions smashes, and he was a principal figure in limiting the Lions to their meager rushing yardage. Dale Minart of Oklahoma State also was used quite frequently at the defensive end. All right, what else we got here? But then we have the Detroit. All right, so we have the August 16th, 1959 edition of the Detroit Free Press. All right. Detroit Free Press. All right, here we go. 73-yard run beats the Lions in Oklahoma. Jim Martin, who had booted 4 field goals earlier, missed a dramatic fifth with only 23 seconds left Saturday night, and the Detroit Lions bowed to the Chicago Cardinals 21-19 before 40,000 in the University of Oklahoma's Owen Field. 73-yard combination run by the Cardinals' King Hill and John Crow with less than 4 minutes to play brought Chicago from behind and dealt the Lions their first defeat of the exhibition season. Martin's kicking had kept the Lions in front through most of the game. He converted kicks of 41 and 12 yards in the first half, and a 1-yard touchdown smash by Ken Webb gave the Lions a 13-7 lead. In the second half, Martin kicked from 32 and 21-yard field goals, but the Lions had no offense to go along with his kicking. They produced only 26 yards rushing and 105 yards passing. It's like, my goodness. Like, how did they get in the field goal range at all? Wow. The Lions leaped to the 3-0 lead in the first 3 minutes on a 41-yard field goal by Jim Martin. The boot followed by Ben Paolucci's recovery of a fumble by the Cardinals' John David Crow on the Chicago 34. After an exchange of punts, Chicago moved deep into Detroit territory. King Hill connected with Woodley Lewis for 17 yards and with Max Boydston for 15 to reach the Detroit 37. Hill rolled to the 21, then Crow cracked to the 4. A pass interference penalty moved the Cardinals to the 1. Then Mal Hammock hammered for the touchdown. Bobby Joe Conrad converted to put the Cardinals, I'm not sure what that means, MHMHH, to put the Cardinals ahead 7-3. As the second period, there we go, let's see what we got here. It's the second period. Opened. The Lions installed an all-veteran lineup with the Cardinals on their own 29. The Lions had their best chance a minute later when MC Reynolds attempted to lateral to John Tracy and fumbled with Wayne Walker recovering for Detroit on the 29. Morrill passed to Dan Lewis on the 8. Lewis lost 2, then Morrill ran to the 6. Morrill missed Lewis with a pass, and on 4th down, Martin kicked a field goal from the 12 to make the score 7-6. Following the kickoff, Reynolds fumbled again, and Alex Karras recovered for the Lions on the 21. John Henry Johnson was trapped going around the right side and lost to the 31. Morrill was thrown for a 4-yard loss. Johnson failed to gain, and on 4th down, Martin's field goal kick from the 42 was partially blocked by Carl Brettenschneider. The ball rolled to the end zone for a touchback, and the Cardinals took over on the 20. The Cards punted, and Detroit took over on the Chicago 48. Morrill passed to the Jim Gibbons for 16. Morrill ran for 4 and then passed again to Gibbons on the 14. 2 plays later, Morrill hit the goalpost with his pass, but interference was ruled against the Cards' Joe Driscoll, and the Lions had a first down on the 1. On the second play, Webb dived over for the touchdown. Jerry Perry's conversion lifted Detroit ahead 13-7. Midway in the third period, Terry Barr took Hill's punt, shook off 4 tacklers, and sped 57 yards down to the Chicago 31. Rhodes fumbled on the second play, however, and Owens recovered for the Cardinals on 34. Late in the period, Dick Night Train Lane intercepted Rhodes' pass on the Detroit 34. Chicago pushed to the 21, then Crow fumbled, and David recovered and raced to the Chicago 49. Lewis raced to the 28. Johnson ran down to the 25, and the third period ended. On the second play of the final period, Martin booted a 32-yard field goal to lift Detroit's lead to 16-7. Chicago started from 20, moved the length of the field on 8 plays to cut the Lions' lead to 16-14. The long gains came on a 30-yard run by Crow and passes of 18 and 20 yards by Hill to Sonny Randall and Childress. Childress scored from the 5. With 7 minutes left, Joe Schmidt intercepted a pass on the Chicago 33 and returned it down to the 16. The Lions could not advance, and Martin booted his 4th field goal from the 21 to make it 19-14 for the Lions. On the 3rd play after the kickoff, Hill raced to his right and lateral to Crow, who raced 73 yards to a touchdown, which put Chicago ahead 21-19. Let's see here. It's the okay. Well, I got. All right, then I got one more here. It's the Tulsa World, the August 16th, 1959 edition of the Tulsa World. So let me. All right, let's see. What does this have to say here? Here's another picture right here, right? John Crow, 44, comes to a sudden halt in the hands of the Detroit Lions' Jim Steffen after gaining 24 yards in an exhibition at Norman's Owen Stadium Saturday night. Crow's run started from his own 44 on the first play from scrimmage in the game. On his hands and knees in front of Crow is King Hill, while Detroit's Jerry Perry, 79, is in the background. Grid cards dropped Detroit 21-19. Nimble John Crow snatched a lateral from King Hill and raced 73 yards down the sidelines with 3:32 left in the game to shoot the Chicago Cardinals past the Detroit Lions 21-19 and a professional football exhibition thriller before 40,000 fans here Saturday night. Two teams put on a dogfight defensive play through the first 3 quarters, with Detroit leading at that mark 13-0. No, that's not right. It was 13-7. Not 13-0. However, Chicago caught fire in the final period with Joe Childress and Crow scoring touchdowns. Jim Martin's talented right toe nearly beat Chicago single-handed. The veteran Detroit tackle made 4 of 6 field goal attempts. Martin nearly brought the game out in the final 23 seconds of play, but his field goal from the 35 yards out went astray when Jimmy Hill broke through to partially block the kick. Bob Ivy's Cardinals, sir, noticed that there will be no pushover on defense in the National Football League play this fall. Chicago limited Detroit to 26 net yards rushing after holding the Lions to no rushing gain for the first stanza. Wow. Fumbles nearly cost Chicago the game. The Cardinals drove deep into Detroit territory 3 times in the third quarter, only to have their rallies thwarted by fumbles. Fumble set up 3 Detroit field goals. Martin successfully kicked from the 41, the 12, the 32, and the 21-yard lines. Chicago didn't attempt any field goals after falling behind 3-0. The Cards struck for their first score with Mal Hammock diving through the air from 1 yard out with 2:22 remaining in the first period. Successive passes from Hill to Woodley Lewis and former OU great Max Boydston and a 19-yard jaunt by Crow set up the score. Hammock's touchdown plunge climaxed a 64-yard drive in 12 plays. Bobby Joe Conrad, hero of last year's college all-star victory over Detroit, booted the extra point. Martin appeared to have sewed up the game for Detroit with a 21-yard field goal with 4:32 left in the game, giving the Lions a 19-14 lead. However, 2 plays after the kickoff, Hill squirted off right tackle, then lateral to Crow, who zigzagged downfield behind fine blocking to give the Cardinals their winning margin. Conrad kicked his third conversion to wind up the victory. Once again, as you can see here, I mean, it was like, Detroit had 4 first downs all game. I mean, basically between the two teams, they had 11 first downs. Wow. They had 26 yards rushing, 131 total yards of offense. Wow. And somehow they had 6 field goal tries, 130. They had 4 first downs, 131 yards of offense, and somehow they scored a touchdown and had chances to kick 6 field goals. Wow. You see Chicago. I mean, at least Chicago, and almost 300 yards. They had 201 yards rushing. 70-something came on the final play, or one of their final. Maybe there might have been their final offensive play of the game. So, but I mean, it was not, as you can see, right? I mean, Chicago scored a touchdown in the first and 2 in the final quarter. So I mean, it was certainly anything from it wasn't the greatest show on turf or nothing like that. It was a good defensive struggle, but thanks to interceptions and fumbles and all, that's where all those scoring chances came from. One thing I said they do know is that, which happened in this game, a lot of times, it just seems like the penalties back then. I mean, every now and then you'll get a game where one team gets hit with 60 or 70 yards of penalties, but quite often you don't see a lot of penalties get called in these games from back then. But also another one of the things which you do notice is that which does set up a lot of scoring chances and opportunities is the interceptions and the fumbles. I mean, the turnovers were aplenty. I mean, there was nothing odd about a team turning the ball over 3 or 4 times in a game back then. I mean, you do that nowadays. I mean, obviously that happens nowadays, but you got teams nowadays that turn the ball over like less than 1 time a game for a whole season. And, but it wasn't like that back then. But this is one of those games, it's just 2 teams, and they meet at a neutral site. Right? They play some football, and at least this time it was a offensive wise was not a thing of beauty, that's for sure. But the Lions had a chance to pull this one out in the final 30 seconds of the game, and their field goal kicker missed a 30-something yard field goal. You missed a 30-something yard field goal nowadays, bye-bye. It's a tough world we live in nowadays. So that's the way it was on this date, August 15th, 1959, as the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Cardinals faced off at Owen Field in Norman, Oklahoma, in pro football's first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.